Hello.
Hi, Emily. It's Nicholas from Radio Nation. How are you doing tonight?
I am doing great. How are you doing, Nicholas?
Can't complain at all. It was a beautiful evening here in Toronto, Ontario, and we're doing well. So, first off, I know you're in Toronto earlier in the summer. I want to say July. The last time we chat, well, not the last time we chatted, but the last time we were here. Talk to me quickly a bit about your time here in Toronto and what you enjoyed most about the city.
Well, unfortunately, I wasn't there for too long, but I was there on behalf of my theater company that I'm a part of called Project Girl Performance Collective. And our executive director, Jessica Greer-Morris, was nominated for the Humanitarian of the Year award on behalf of Nations United, which was a really big deal. And luckily, she won the award. So I was there in Toronto to attend the awards and to represent Project Girl Performance Collective. And I actually got to go up on stage and give a whole speech. And it was really fun to be in. It was really exciting. But in Toronto, and I was in the downtown area, but only for a few short hours. I had flight problems and a bunch of craziness was going on, but I had a lot of fun and I met some cool people from Toronto while I was at the Nations United Awards, which was really nice. For
those of you just tuning into Radio Nation right now, we're joined live on air with Emily Rupp from New York, but you're originally from Michigan. Do you want to say where in Michigan you're from?
Yes, I'd love to. I'm from a little town called Lake Orion. It's about a little bit outside of Detroit. And we're actually only about, I think, maybe like 4 or 5 hours outside of Toronto, too.
So talk to me quickly before we get into your career about what it was like growing up in Michigan, and then, we'll talk later about how you got to New York, but I guess talk to me a little bit about what it was like growing up in, smaller town Michigan.
Little suburb, I guess. I love growing up in the Midwest, and I really like that's where my roots are. I loved experiencing all 4 of the seasons and being able to get into all sorts of sports and activities in all those seasons. I'm an outdoorsy person. I really like to be outdoors. Growing up, my whole family, my grandparents and my mom gardened, and we had woods in our backyard. We had pets growing up all the time, all sorts of pets. We had rabbits and guinea pigs and dogs and cats and fish and frogs and probably anything you could really name. And I grew up my whole life in one house, so I didn't have to move around or anywhere. And luckily, my parents are still there today. So whenever I go home, it's a really good chance to get back to my roots, and that's really nice. But it was really good. I really like all the food from the Midwest, and I still say pop, not soda. And people make fun of me for it all the time.
We say that up here in Canada too, and when I go down to the States, people are like, "Pop? What's pop?" Right?
I know exactly.
All right, let's get into your music career here for a bit. Now, how did you get started in music?
Well, in high school, I started to perform, doing musical theater in my high school and doing some theater and acting. And my parents both they've been playing guitar for as long as I can remember, and since they were in high school, and they sang. And once I started to get into the little performing mode, we decided to make a little family band. So when I was in high school and throughout my few years of high school, we had Emily Rupp and family that would perform at flower fairs around the city. I performed for local news stations, singing competitions. I was the president of my thespian society. I was really, really into performing. But it wasn't until I really got out to New York until I really started to have a solo career and sort of go out on my own and do my own thing.
What brought you to New York?
I came to New York to go to acting school, and I went to the New York Conservatory for Dramatic Arts, School for Film and Television. So I moved out here for film and television acting, and when I first started performing in high school, it was literally once I started, there was no turning back. Like, that's what I was going to be doing forever. I just knew that that's what I had to do. So after I graduated high school, I was 17. I moved to New York, and I moved here by myself. I didn't know anyone, didn't know anything. I had visited here once to audition for my school because it was a very selective process. But when I first moved here, I didn't know anyone or anything. So it was a very, very interesting experience.
Now, speaking of performing, you've had the opportunity to perform at the White House, which is pretty cool. I don't think that there's too many people in the world that can say they've actually done that. So
Yeah.
how did that happen?
Well, that was actually a performance that was with Project Girl Performance Collective, and we've thankfully I'm so blessed to have been able to perform at numerous venues that are very prestigious, state theaters all around the U.S. and in front of very prestigious people at the United Nations, and the White House was the most outrageous experience. And what was really cool is that I was the oldest of the cast, and I actually drove a van, like a big 14-passenger van, with the entire cast from New York City to D.C. to perform at this event. And it was being thrown by Michelle Obama's cabinet. So she actually wasn't there. She was in Africa at the time, but it was an event that her, whole crew was putting on. And in that performance, I was able to perform some original music and also some spoken word and some monologues that I had written. But it was so surreal because when we were backstage, we could see all of the posters and stuff that go on the podium when Obama speaks, or when any president for that matter speaks. So when we were backstage, there's all these, very official looking things, and there's guards everywhere, and you go through so many security checkpoints. But it was so crazy being on stage and being able to stand in the same place that presidents dating back who knows how long, and being able to perform my own work and speak my own words. It was really, really awesome.
You also had a chance. You also performed on TED Talks, which is pretty cool. And if people don't know what TED Talks is, they can definitely just check it out online because it is a really cool thing. So how did, I guess, what was that experience like? And then completely different, obviously, from, performing at the White House. Yeah,
it was very different. It was a different crowd. That was actually a global televised, 24-hour event. So there were TED Talks, I guess you say like clubs or little meeting places all around the globe that were stationed and watching the live feed of what was happening at the Pele Center in New York, which is where I was performing at. And that was also with Project Girl Performance Collective. And it was we got to share a dressing room with Gloria Steinem, who is the godsend of, feminism, and she's a very powerful woman, and also Jane Fonda, which was, she's a big celebrity as well, and that was a really exciting experience. But any performance I've done with Project Girl Performance Collective is all about, we have a couple different programs, and some of it is from personal experience that I've performed from, and some of it is from monologues or spoken word poetry or songs that I've written about girls all over the world, in third world countries, in everywhere. So it's really cool to be able to speak those words for these prestigious people and at these prestigious events and venues.
Talk to me quickly about a little bit about, and I mean briefly, about your acting career and how it, I guess, transformed or helped your music career per se.
Yeah, well, like I said, I came out to New York for acting. That was my main focus. And once I started kind of writing, which was started with Project Girl, once I started writing a lot, I started writing songs, and I was talking to my parents back in Michigan, and I was like, I've been writing these songs, I don't, like, maybe I can send you me singing it, and you can write music for it and send it back to me so I can sing along to like an instrumental track. And so that's what happened for my very first song that I wrote. And after that, it was like, well, why don't I have an instrument and I'll just accompany myself? And so I asked for a guitar for Christmas, and I got it. My mom taught me a couple chords, and I was on my way. I'm a self-taught musician, at least on guitar, and now ukulele also. But my acting career is a lot of storytelling, and that's why I really try to bring into a lot of my music is, not just, spitting out lyrics, but making it not only personal for me, but telling a story and being able to have a story relate to a lot of different audiences.
If you're just joining us here on Radio Nation, you're listening to Emily Rupp live on Radio Nation. You can follow us along on Twitter at @radio_nation, and you can tweet us some questions for Emily, and we'll be taking some of those questions later on in the broadcast tonight. We got lots of listeners in, so I know all of you that are out there, whether you're in the East Coast, West Coast, or the Midwest, or whether you're all spread throughout Canada. Tweet us your questions for Emily, because I'd be happy to read them on air, as many as I can. All right, Emily, so you're a self-taught musician. So what was the hardest part about teaching yourself to play music?
I think the hardest part was that I'm trained on flute and piccolo. I've been playing flute and piccolo since I was, I think, in like 4th grade. But singing-wise, I was never in choir. I never took lessons or anything for music. And my mom also, both my parents play by ear. So they could listen to a song a couple times and then figure out the guitar chords and sing it and figure out harmonies, and they're good. And so I think I kind of inherited that trait where my singing, I just play by ear. And so when I was learning guitar, tabs were one thing. I can't understand how to read tabs yet, but I could look online and look at all those chord charts. And a lot of the times I would just kind of like move my fingers around on the guitar and be like, okay, this sounds good, this sounds good. I can make my voice sound like this. All right, we'll do this. We'll figure this out. But I would do it all by ear, and I think that was one of the most difficult things. That's how I started with singing, so it just kind of translated over into my guitar playing. Maybe if I had voice lessons or guitar lessons, I would be learning a little bit faster. But I'm really liking the individualization that I'm having on creating my songs and being able to teach myself and be self-sufficient. It's very, very exciting.
What's been what's been a big challenge for you then, I guess perhaps more say in your music career, leaning a little away from your acting career, but what's been a big challenge for you then, I guess, really overall as a performer?
I think the biggest challenge would probably just be balancing myself. I work a full-time job in Midtown Manhattan from 9 to 5, and most of the time I have an acting gig or a singing gig or an interview or some sort of thing going on. And I think the biggest challenge as an artist and in trying to keep my creative juices flowing is just really being able to balance my life and making sure I'm not, putting on any sort of front whenever I'm at work, not being creative. I need to be creative all the time, and I need to be able to harness that and be able to hone that all the time and that energy.
Where do you draw your creatism from, whether it's personal experiences or just in general?
My creativity?
Yes. If that's... Is creatism a word? I don't think it's a word. It's creativity. It's also like 10:15 at night, and I've already done 3 interviews. Not that it's an excuse or anything, but there you go. I think I just made up a word on air.
Hey, why not? My creativism comes from, a lot of it comes from myself and from my own life experiences or my emotions. But a lot of time, like I mentioned earlier in my storytelling, and I think this is when my acting comes in a lot too, is that I'll kind of hone in on an emotion, and maybe it's not something that I'm either fully prepared to elaborate on or something, but I can hone in on something and sort of make up a story or make up a scene in a lifeline in an arc for some sort of person that can relate to many people and do that. And I do a lot of stuff from nature. I have songs that are about rainstorms, and a lot of them are metaphorical and using nature as a metaphor for emotion or for a person or for a place, a lot of that stuff.
This is a question that I actually was going to ask you later on, but Chad got to it first on Twitter, and that is what band or artist is really influencing your music at the moment?
At the moment, and who has been a strong influence since I've started playing music, is Kelly Clarkson. I really admire Kelly Clarkson because, first off, when I first started singing, I have a very big belty voice and a lower voice, which is something that Kelly Clarkson has. And not only aside from her music styling and her performance and her song lyrics and her storytelling, but as a celebrity, she is just phenomenal, and she's been able to keep her composure a lot. And I admire the fact that she, as big a success as she has gotten since American Idol, she was a small girl from Texas, but no matter how much in the spotlight she got, it always seemed like she was very grounded and that she wasn't afraid of the rumors and that she always stood her ground and she always was herself. And that's something that I really admire, I guess, for anyone in the spotlight, but specifically Kelly because I relate to so many other things with her. That's something that I really admire about her, and I really look up to her, and she's been a very big influence for me.
What is it that you feel, or I guess that you relate you relate to her about? What is it? What are the things that is it things that she's gone through, or just like experiences that she's had, or just the way she carries herself?
Yeah, definitely the way that she carries herself. I think she was definitely harped on in the beginning of her career for her body image and for being, overweight and everything. And I think as myself and as an advocate for, young women around the world, having the media is, it's just a damper on everyone's day. Like, it's always going to bring you down. But Kelly has always been that person to be able to take any rumor and just kind of be herself with it. She's not going to change. She wasn't advocating any, eating disorders or anything, which she shouldn't have. And, I think that's the biggest thing, is the body image thing for me, because I certainly am not a perfect image, and neither is most of the world. And as much as the media pushes on everyone, especially celebrities, she's really held her ground, and I really admire that.
I'm going to switch gears here a little bit here, and get into some fun random questions for a bit, including this is a question, like I like if you heard in the interviews before, we ask this question almost to every artist that comes on the show, and that is, what is your favorite Disney movie of all time?
My favorite Disney movie of all time, I would have to say, is Cinderella. And when I was younger, I have all these little pictures of me when I went to Disney World when I was really young. And I had this little Cinderella costume that I think I wore probably the entire trip at Disney World. And I got the prince's autograph at Cinderella's castle. And that is still one of my prized little possessions in my little Disney autograph book. And I love it to death. And I really love that movie.
What is one thing about yourself that people don't know about you?
Oh, man, one thing that people don't know about me. I'm a pretty open person. I'm not sure. Well, I do have a fear that is kind of an awkward and random fear. But I have a fear of prunes.
All right.
And that's a little embarrassing. It's not something I just go out and spread around the world.
How did you get that fear?
I had a nightmare once where I was eating all these prunes and my teeth started falling out. And to this day, I still get nervous in the grocery store, going by the rooms. It freaks me out. And one time, actually this happened fairly recently. My brother, we were at a Walgreens, and at the checkout they have those impulse buys, like the candy bars and the gum and all things. Okay, well, at our Walgreens nearby, they decided that they wanted to put the impulse buys of boxes of prunes. So we were waiting in the checkout line, and just waiting, and then we were getting close to the cash register, and all of a sudden I see these boxes, and I was like, oh my god. So I stepped away from them, and my brother noticed the boxes, and all of a sudden he starts picking up the boxes and shoving them towards me. He's like, oh, Emily, do you want to get these? Do you want to get these? And he was just messing with me, but it's kind of, I was getting nervous.
So I guess for anybody listening, don't ever give Emily prunes. Don't ever order prunes around her. Just don't even say the word prunes.
Oh, it gives me goosebumps.
Definitely not a word around Emily. You got some shows coming up in October. Do you want to talk a bit about them and what they are exactly?
Yeah, sure. I have a show coming up on October 10th at Gizzy's Cafe, which is in Greenwich Village in New York. And it's actually going to be the first of a songwriters night that Gizzy's will be hosting. And it's going to be a weekly event where they're going to have, it's like an open mic night for songwriters to come and only perform their original music. And every week they're going to have one featured songwriter. And I was lucky enough to be asked to be featured at the first one. So that's really exciting. And then I also have a show at the end of October, and that is going to be at Jabon Sushi, which is in St. Mark, and in Lower Manhattan. And that is going to be part of the 3rd anniversary of Underground Artists Live, which is a showcase, a monthly showcase of a bunch of indie artists. And that's it's all very exciting. I always love when I have shows, and I really enjoy performing live. It's really exciting for me.
Is there one place in New York that you really want to perform at? And I know that's probably a really dumb question in a lot of ways because there's just so many places in New York to perform at.
No, that's not a dumb question at all. I think, and I heard on some of the other interviews, what place around the world have you always dreamt of, performing at? But someplace I would love to perform it at is Radio City Music Hall, and I just think the history behind Radio City and the people that have performed there before, I would love to be able to be on that list of performers that have been there, and I would really love to perform there.
What is it? I mean, you just mentioned off the top, but I mean, there's so many venues in New York City. Do you find it hard to book gigs or to get invited to gigs? Is it hard because it's like one of the biggest hubs in the world for music, or it's just a place everybody for performance that's where that's where you go?
Well, I mean, it definitely varies venue per venue because I mean, there's a selection of places that you have to submit an electric press kit, you have to follow up, and sometimes it could take months and months and months and months to even get a response from these venues. But other places, there's cafes, there's coffee shops, there's bookstores, there's thrift stores, there's any sort of place in New York that has an electrical outlet is literally a venue. And I think that's one of the positives because there are so many performers in New York City. I mean, it's like there's an unimaginable amount of performers in New York. And it is difficult sometimes to get certain venues. However, there's a lot of places that are, maybe smaller or maybe not so high up on the music scene that you're able to play at fairly often. And there's also open mic nights on weeknights so much of the time. And I think that being in New York and being around the creativity that's here, and even if you're not performing, but you're a performer, being able to go to so many live shows and live events is a really, really good learning experience. And it's a really great opportunity for you to be able to not only network, but be able to see what the venue draws and the type of music played at every venue.
What is one thing about New York that, and I know there's many things, but what is one thing about New York? Is there a certain place in the city that you love to go and hang out at? What is it about New York that you love the most, or what do you love to do in New York the most besides perform?
I think my favorite thing about New York is, well, this is a very broad answer, but events. Or maybe I should narrow it down and say like themed events. I mentioned before that I work full time in Midtown Manhattan, which is very bustly, and I have to wear like black pants, and it's off of Madison Avenue, and I have to go to my job. But I live in Brooklyn, which is a very indie scene, and there's a lot of art out here in Brooklyn, and I love living in Brooklyn. And a lot of my weekends are just filled with any kind of event you could imagine. There's tiki disco parties, there's Cinco de Mayo luchador like parties, I went to a punk rock sock hop recently. There's just all sorts of different parties and events that you can go to, and I think that's probably my favorite part about being able to live in New York and have those at my disposal and be able to go to any of those at the drop of the hat. And also I think New York is extremely expensive, I know, but all of the free events, there's a ton of free stuff or very, very cheap stuff that goes on in the city, and that's mostly where I go because, come on, let's face it, I'm a starving artist. And I think being able to have so many different venues and so many different types of things to go to every night is really exciting.
Let's talk a bit quickly about your song, I Need a Man. Let's talk a bit about that song. Where did you get the inspiration to that song, and what can we expect on it other than its title?
Well, whenever I play this song, I always have to preface the song by saying that it is titled I Need a Man, but I don't need a man. I'm a pretty independent lady. However, in the song you'll hear it says, I need a man, not just a boy that plays with my heart. And I think that's just coming from, I'm still young, but not getting any younger, and I don't need to play around the play set anymore. I need to have, a real man around me, and that's what I would like, and that's where the inspiration for the song came, I think.
Right on. Well, before we let you go tonight, I'm gonna ask you a couple more questions. We're gonna try to take a couple more off Twitter here if we can get a chance to do that. But one question I did want to ask you is other shows in the future. I mean, I noticed you got the album coming out, or a planned album coming out for December. Talk quickly a bit about that.
Yeah, I am. I'm planning on. I'm going to be recording an acoustic live album in December, and it's going to be titled "From a Living Room." And it is going to be a very intimate live recording, and it's going to be actually recorded in my apartment, in my living room. It's going to be a live concert. I'm going to have an audience here with me, and it's going to be a mixture of my spoken word poetry and also my acoustic songs, hopefully mixed in with a couple other acoustic instruments like the cajon or acoustic bass or cello. But it's going to be really exciting because I, right now in my present career, I don't exactly have the resources, the time, the money, the connections, the musicians to make a full studio album. But since, I just, as an artist, you want to always be making music and getting music out there. So something that I really want to do is, just release my music, have some music out there and have a takeaway for people. So what my live album will be is going to be a live album, but it's not going to be from a venue. It's not going to be, I'm not going to be having people pay a cover charge to go to a venue and have that loud sound system recording. I want to have a live audience, but I want to have it be people that are actually really into it and really supporting it. And I want to take away the big sound system, and I want to make it very intimate. That's why I'm doing it in my living room.
Well, that sounds really cool. And is this sort of like a private kind of friends-only, family-only type of thing? Or
yeah, it's definitely going to be a friends-only thing. I mean, if there's some people in New York that would be interested, they can definitely contact me on Twitter or at my website, official.emilyrupp.com. But for now, it's definitely going to be just a private affair. We'll see what happens, I guess, at the next couple of shows and see how much hype gets up about it.
Well, very cool, and maybe we can do a big feature. Like, we have some features on our site, so maybe we'll do one on your album coming out. All right, yeah. Emily, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your night here on a beautiful Tuesday evening here in Toronto. I don't know what it was like weather-wise in New York, but I'm assuming it was probably just as nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool over here. It's kind of breezy, but it's nice.
Hey, it was a warm day here today. I mean, it was like in the 60s today, and yesterday it felt like it was in the lower 30s. It was cold, but yes.
Wow.
Thanks a lot for taking the time out of your night to join us, and look forward to hearing from you. And we'll get you on again soon, but closer to your release of your CD.
Great, awesome.